Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the top 16 superstars race in the EU region at Dragon Trail in Group 4. So for this race we have done a couple of practice races and they have been pretty much a disaster. However, in the qualifying we managed to hook our lap up finally and did a very nice lap. P1, an absolutely amazing lap of a 1 minute 44.2. I believe he actually had to do an overtake on that lap as well, so credit to Will with that lap. P3 there, Fire, probably one of the fast drivers on the track, but didn't get a slipstream. Obviously everyone wanted his slipstream, including myself. We managed to get ourselves up into P5, a 1 minute 44.579. My personal best out of the practices that we had done. I hadn't really managed to get in the 44s until this race. Managed to hook it up and managed to do a very solid lap. So I was really happy to actually get myself the 44. It does tend to happen when it comes to the actual race. I do tend to concentrate that little bit more and normally do put the lap together more consistently than when we're practicing. When we're practicing we tend to be watching the stream and just messing around a bit, but really happy with the qualifying. P5, an opportunity to get a very big result from this race. Obviously points in this were 1.2, so times 1.2, and the lobby was determined by DR this time rather than your ranking in the championship, so the points were very high for P1. I think they were just under 400 points for the win in this race. It might have even been just over 400, I can't exactly remember, but an opportunity to pick up some very nice points in this race. Obviously only 16 cars in the top 16 race, so a little bit smaller field than usual. Let's see what we can do starting from P5. Now for this round there was actually two different strategies that were possible to run. You could go for the one stop or the no stop. Obviously one set of tyres is all we had available for this race, so there's no compulsory usage of tyres. It's a simple medium tyre run. You either make that last to the end or you pit. The McLaren being quite strong on tyres and actually very stable with the bias set to the rear, I decided we're going to go for that no stop strategy. So what you're going to see during this early stint is a lot of tyre saving, a lot of leaving that bias to the fore, to the rear, and braking a little bit early and trying not to put 100% braking in all the time as we go into turn 1. Right behind Josette in the Cayman. Cayman very good on tyres. I've driven that car before. I wasn't sure how it would be at this track towards the end. I do know that I remember doing a no stop in the Cayman when it was super soft tyres. We have a member join the channel there on screen. I still don't know how to remove that from the recordings, but thank you very much to Bringes Bob. As Fire, you might have just seen that in front of Josetti in the Cayman. Fire just ran off wide. He hit the curb a little bit too hard, got off out of shape going over the curb, and has unfortunately gone out of this race already. That's going to be a massive blow for Fire, having to come back through the field and trying to recover some sort of race. He's all the way down, I think down into P15 when I checked the replay, so not a great start for Fire. But for myself, now up to P4, this is looking pretty nice already. So we're going to go into tyre save mode. What you'll see is on the braking inputs, not actually going that aggressive on the 100% braking. We're trying to get it around 70 to 90% braking, and never really, we don't want to be pushing the limits into the braking. We're going to brake a little bit shorter than what we should, so you'll see if, for example, if we're pushing it, we'd be braking right up to them brake markers, but we're going to brake about 30 to 50 meters short of them markers, and just trail brake it nice and gently into the corner, and then just lift off and then let the car coast and then back on throttle. So again through here you'll see not putting the 100% braking in, lifting off the throttle, car coasting for a bit, then onto throttle nice and early, getting the car rotated, and then working our way down the straight. Now I still do need to work on my tyre saving during the race in terms of braking inputs. I still am a little bit aggressive. I'm quite heavy footed, you see, with my braking. I think a load cell would really help me out, but because obviously the T3 Pros are not load cell, I do find it quite hard to get the right pressure down. But you can see doing a reasonable job in the corners, just putting that like 80 to 90% braking in and then getting off the brake quite early and letting the car coast through the corner. So at the moment we're about 8 tenths behind. Now I wasn't too worried about this. As long as we stay in the slipstream, we can use that slipstream to our advantage by just trying to look after the tyres, and then on the straights just let the power of this McLaren. Now like I say, one thing with the McLaren, it's got 7 gears. Normally what you'll find is cars with 7 gears are quite good in the slipstream because they've got a lot of torque. You can get a lot of power from them higher gears because obviously the ratios are closer together. So you'll find that in a slipstream these cars can be very, very strong, and that is one reason why I did actually pick this car. So we can see the gap getting to around 1 second, but what you'll see is we only have to brake a little bit more aggressively into the corner again. So this time we're putting pretty much normal aggression into that braking zone. just to try and get back into the slipstream of the Cayman in front of me, and we do that quite easily, back up to 9/10 behind, and then through the chicane of death, trying to get into a rhythm on this track. Obviously the chicane of death is such a tricky corner, you see there, hitting that curb. Now one thing I did find the McLaren was it was quite tricky on that second part of the curb. It did want to bounce up. Now there was a way of doing it very well, but very often I would get the car bouncing through there like I did in practice and hitting the wall, but luckily this time we didn't hit the wall. As we see Will, who started in pole position, getting attacked by Josetti in the Cayman now. It looks like that the Cayman is actually going to be able to make a move on him anytime soon. So this is going to be interesting as well, what other cars, what strategies people are on. We've got the Mercedes behind us, one of the very, very strong cars at this track, Mercedes. As we skip through now to lap 5, carried on that tyre saving for a few laps, and now we're a third of the way through the race now at this point. Still in P4, we've managed to hold off the Mercedes behind us. We've got Will in front of us. Don't know if the tyre wear was starting to kick in on that NSX, or clearly maybe not going for a no-stop strategy. I wasn't 100% sure at this stage. I did know in the practice race we had B-Racer, and he actually did pit, so it looks like the NSX was a little bit too aggressive on its tyres to really go for that no-stop strategy around this track. Maybe it became a little bit loose through the chicane of death. You don't want obviously a rear end going really loose through there. It can be very dangerous as we go through the final corner now. And what you're going to see now is B-Racer just peel off to the right there, and Will follows him. The two NSXs are going to go for a very, very early pit stop. Now that is very risky. Obviously you've got to work out when your tyres are starting to go. However, that could be a little bit too early. It depends on traffic. It could work out for some, it could work out a disaster, because you're risking having to overtake a lot of drivers, because a lot of drivers will be doing the no-stop strategy. We have a little look at the replay camera, and you can still see 4 cars battling out for this top positions in this race. You can see just behind the Jaguar. I think it's actually a Jaguar behind me, not a Mercedes behind me. I think the Mercedes is driven by SDL Sonic behind the Jaguar. So we've got a Jaguar and a Mercedes behind us. In front of myself, the Cayman. So very good cars at this track. McLaren very strong at this track as well. I find the McLaren in Group 4. Like I've said in many other videos, it's a very underrated Group 4 car. It's not very often used, however it is a very stable car. Like I say, in qualifying you need a slipstream in general. It's not a time trialing car. It's not going to get you an amazingly fast time in time trial. However, what it will do is it's very easy to drive, and its race pace is normally very solid. It's consistent on tyres. You can use the brake bias to look after whatever tyres you tend to need to use, because it's stable on wherever you put that brake bias. Whereas you compare with the Cayman gets a little bit more tricky to drive when you go rearwards with the bias. I found that when I used to use that car. I've obviously driven the Cayman quite a lot in this game. As we make our way through that chicane of death for another lap, and just still staying in that slipstream, still looking after the tyres. You'll see again in the braking, look at that, trying to keep it around 90. See, what I've noticed I'm doing is I'm still not really saving tyres as much as what I could do. So this is further improvement I need to make. I'm noticing that I'm going to about 90% brake and then going to 80-70. What I need to get that down to is maybe braking a little bit earlier, braking it to about 70 to 80%, and then slowly fade off, because that extra 10% etc will give you that little bit of extra tyre life on your fronts. Obviously the more aggressive you brake will take the front lights off, the more aggressive you downshift tends to take the rear tyres off. So that is what you'll find at tracks where you've got to look after the rears. What you tend to have to do is just reduce your shifting down, don't let the differential lock up, and when you need to look after your front tyres you need to brake early and just do very gentle braking, 60 to 70% braking. The perfect example to watch is PR1 Fire and TRL Lightning. These two are probably some of the best drivers on the game at looking after tyres, in my personal opinion, and they're the drivers that I'm trying to learn from. But I am making a bit of progress. I still need to make more progress with the tyre management. But in this race you can see we have Josette in front of us. We're managing to just sit in that slipstream. This is the advantage as well. When you're in that tow, you can just really just run your race based on looking after your tyres, because you know that the power of the slipstream on GT Sport will just drag you back into play, and the fact that the Cayman is not a particularly strong car down the straights makes it that little bit easier for me to just hang in there. For example, if that was Fire in front of us, I think it would have been a lot harder to stay in his slipstream, because he was so consistent around this track anyway, but also because of the speed of the Jaguar down the straights, it's a lot harder for the McLaren to stay with. But the Cayman, it was fairly simple for the McLaren 650 just to stay in the tow, just basically take it easy through the corners. You can see there the braking, much better braking through there, not putting that 100% braking in, and looking after them tyres. And the tyres are actually looking in very, very nice shape at the moment. You can see we've got quite a lot of life left in them as we start lap 8, coming up to about halfway through this race, halfway through this lap, and we'll be dead on halfway through the race as we now skip ahead to lap 9 as we just sit behind PR1 Josette. And now getting a little bit closer. We're not going to go for a move though. Now this is one thing we didn't want to do. I did not want to battle too much at this stage. I felt like if we all start battling, all we're going to do is play into the hands of the people that pitted. So, and also the fact that I could see Fire in P5 at this stage was quite worrying, because we know how fast he was and how good he was able to look after his tyres. And we've also got Will behind Fire. Can't see B Racers, so B Racers obviously had an issue at some point in this race. But Will still there in P6 behind Fire, so they're going to be coming through with probably much better tyre life, especially Will in the NSX, who's pitted and changed his tyres on lap 5. So at this point we're not trying to battle too much. If we can do a clean overtake without battling, we'll do it, but we're not going to just start fighting, squabbling away, losing time together. It's really important that you kind of work together at this stage of the race, because you want to keep that gap to the chasing group and give yourself the best opportunity at the end of the race for a decent result. As you can see, I'm getting very, very close at Cayman now. You can see the Cayman looks like he's starting to struggle a little bit on rear tyre life and also on front tyre life. It could be Josetti just taking it a little bit easier, trying to look after them tyres as we go through the chicane of death. Again, very clean through there, both myself and the Cayman in front and the Jaguar behind. Everyone driving very, very nice at the moment in this leading group of 4. You can see Sonic, McGee, myself and Josetti in the Cayman driving really smooth and not really making any errors. We're not battling away too much, and this is what you want really. I'm sure the battling is going to kick in though towards the end of this race. That's when it all tends to kick off in these races where you're looking after the tyre wear. And again, we're getting a massive slipstream. Now this time you can see I'm going to go for that move. So much more power down this with the McLaren, and we've got the inside line. Cleverly, the Cayman did not fight that. Very clever driving again from PR1 there, just making sure that we don't battle, then tucking into my slipstream. And this is what you need. You need to be working together in these situations, especially when you've got a car that's just got so much more speed down the straights. As we get ourselves now into the lead of this race with just over 5 laps to go to the finish of this race. This is looking like it's going to be a very close finish. If you look at the track map, you can see that there is a group of chasing cars led by PR1 Fire, then Will, obviously with them fresher tyres, and Academy, who started last on the grid, is now up to P7 in this race, obviously driving the Alpha 4C with its insane tyre management. So that car could obviously just drive flat out from the start of the race all the way to the end. No worries for that car with tyres. If it's got a slipstream, that car is going to be very, very strong towards the end of the race. However, we do know that the Alpha 4C does struggle with straight line speed, so it'd be really interesting where that Alpha can get to by the end of this race. But trying to keep it now nice and consistent through the chicane of death. You can see there starting to lose a bit of grip there, got a little bit unsettled there. The Cayman behind us could possibly go for a move. I'm not going to defend it. You can see I'm just staying to the left there, because if he wanted to go for that, I wasn't going to try and lose too much time, but he decides to just back off and just stay in my slipstream, probably because he knows that the McLaren is a little bit faster down the straight. So clever again by Josette, just decided to stick in my slipstream down this straight, because he probably would have known if he'd have gone for the move, I would have just got him back down this long straight. You see, I'm not going to defend it on the inside really. I'm just going to stay to the right hand side, but again, you can see that the power of the McLaren has pretty much made myself stay in the lead in this race as we start lap 11. Not long to go now in this race, starting to get very narrow. I have to say the pressure is starting to build up when you're driving in these top 16 races, knowing that the Gran Turismo are also recording this race to upload on their channel. Really does add that little bit of extra pressure, and I quite enjoy it, to be honest. And performing very well at the moment in this Group 4 race in the McLaren as we work our way up the hill, trying to get a strong exit off that right hand corner. You can see that Porsche still looking quite strong now. It's in the slipstream, so really does show you that this race is really a slipstream race. You've just got to be in the slipstream. At this point now though, the advantage for myself is I don't get that dirty air, so through corners like this I tend to look after the front tyres a bit better. However, We can't really look after our tyres as well in terms of braking zones because we can't brake earlier because I need to get as much speed from the exits to the corners. But look at this now, 4 cars fighting for the lead in this race. This is getting very, very close, and it's all going to heat up towards the end of this race as we now have another chasing pack just in the distance there, closing on ourselves. So look how amazing this looks going through the chicane of death. All 4 cars very closely through there. One thing I don't like doing is being too close through there. It's so tricky when you're low down and you don't have the view in front of you. As now Josetti goes for that overtaking. See, I'm not going to fight it though. Again, trying to drive this very tactically. Just going to stay wide and give myself a strong exit from this corner. Pick up the toe from that Cayman and hopefully get back past him down the main straight. And you're going to see now with the strength of the McLaren down the straight with his 7th gear, we should be able to do this fairly simple. But what you did see in the background was that police car livery driven by fire. So we know that that chasing pack is coming through. We're trying to not battle too hard, but you can see that now people are starting to think they want to be in the lead in this race. We're coming up towards the last few laps in this race, and people are obviously going to start fighting for positions, and this is when it is all going to get very, very tense towards the end as we go through this right hand corner. Just being careful not to take too much of that curb. We saw what happened to fire in the early part of this race, and behind us we see cars battling away there. All 3 cars battling for that P2 position. Crazy driving going on here in this top split, top 16 race, going through this really fast section at Dragon Trail. A really nice section. This McLaren quite strong through it. Didn't really have a strong front end as some cars, however it was still pretty good because of the torque this car has, able to go into them gears a little bit earlier and still maintain that power and get rid of some of that tyre scrubbing that does tend to wear off them front lives, the front tyre life. Then into the braking zone, you see sliding a bit now. You can start seeing that the car is starting to slide on the braking, where we're now coming to the last few laps and we're starting to think we need to just push a bit more, using up a bit more tyre life, trying to just keep ourselves in P1 in this race. Obviously it's going to be very hard now because we haven't got the Cayman behind us with its lack of straight line speed. We've now got probably one of the fastest cars in Group 4 behind us, so this is going to be a different matter of trying to defend against that Jaguar. That Jaguar has got a much more stronger straight line speed. So let's have a little look now as we start onto start lap 13 on this long straight. How fast will that Jaguar be in the slipstream following this McLaren as we go into 6th gear, then trying to work our way into 7th gear. We're going to stay to the left hand side because we're going to defend this. We want the win in this race. Obviously everyone wants to win in this race. It's the one race you really want to win every season. So we brake a little bit later, managed to get the car into the apex, very nice braking there, and still hook the corner and keep this lead on lap 13 and actually keep reasonable exit speed there, as SDL McGee can't really get the exit speed from that Jaguar. The tyres obviously suffering on that car also as we go into the braking zone, keeping it nice and smooth, hooking the apex up nicely there, on the throttle nice and early, and again just holding on at the moment, trying to keep this position in this race. But look at the gaps behind. You can see that we are now in a train of more than 4 cars. You can see just behind Josette is another group just outside the slipstream still. I think Will in the NSX, matter of just temps outside the slipstream though. Within half a lap or so he is going to be right in this battle along with Fire and along with SDL Academy in that Alpha 4C. So this is going to turn into a 7-car battle on the last few laps for the lead of this race. This is what top 16 races is all about. Amazing driving by all competitors at the moment in this race, keeping it nice and clean. And obviously it's going to heat up on these last few laps when everyone starts building up the tension. They want to get that move done and they want to go for the win in this race. As we actually hooked that chicane of death up reasonably well there. You can see that Sonic, now we have Sonic behind us, a driver who is a lot more aggressive in my opinion than McGee. It's a driver that you kind of feel he's going to go for a dive, so you just open the door up quite a lot of the time because you're just kind of expecting a bit of a dive from him as we go down the main straight now. Changing that brake bias, you might have seen 2+3 because of the braking into some of them heavy braking zones. It was starting to get a little bit loose this McLaren now, so I started to sacrifice some front tyre life. As we stay to the left, you can see that Mercedes behind us is a little bit more grunt. We're going to try and brake late and still hold the apex as we manage to do that. However, very nice driving by Sonic, tries to get a better exit as we go onto the curb. A little bit of contact between myself and that Mercedes coming out of the corner there. as we now go into this fast right hand corner. You're going to see SDL Sonic goes for a dive up the inside. I kind of seen it coming, had to give him space on the left, then he just gives me a little nudge there. It was a good move by Sonic. I just think that I was quite annoyed on stream, from brutally honest, probably a little bit more than I should have been. However, the only thing I was a little bit frustrated was with the contact at the end. I felt like he could have done it a little bit cleaner. If you watch how Will does it on in a future, on the next app, we're going to watch Will when we come around for the next app. He does it a lot cleaner. I just think it could have been fractionally better, but still a fairly good move by Sonic there. Puts himself into lead. However, I lose that position to the other SDL driver, and now trying to get that position back to get myself back up into P2. But you're going to see holding the inside there, getting on the pile nice and early. Sonic is going to keep that slipstream towards his fellow SDL driver, staying to the left there, you can see, and that stops myself being able to go around the outside. Although I probably would have backed out there, because you do not want to go too wide through this corner. Trying to keep it smooth through there, very hard when you're following a car so closely. And now we're down into P3 in this race as we go into the braking zone. Will behind us a little bit back there, but you can see he's going to go for that dive. SDL McGee has to brake very early there. I think Sonic tried to hold the apex a bit, and that caused myself to hit McGee, and now we've got nowhere to go with Will on the right side. So I think Will just got caught out by the braking, because McGee braked that a little bit early, and then obviously had to brake even more aggressively because of Sonic. And then he made that move. So a good move by Will, putting himself up into P3 in this race and down to P4 from P1. Quite disappointing at this stage of the race. We really wanted to get a podium, although going into this race I didn't even expect a top 7, if I'm really honest. I wasn't driving very well in all practice races, but just look at this now. On the final lap of the race, you're going to see, look just behind us, we have another group of guards. There they are, joining this battle for the win of this race. This is insane driving as Will goes for an amazing move there on McGee, and just look at that. Does it nice and clean, gives him space before the exit, and he tucks in into P2 with them fresher tyres than P1. So this is going to be really interesting how this race pans out. Will be able to get himself into the lead this race, but just look at that behind us. 7 cars after 15 laps of this race, nearly 26 minutes of racing, and we're this close towards the end of the race. As Will there, a massive moment, goes onto the gravel. He's going to have dirty tyres, I did know that, going into the braking zone. So watch me go quite wide into this corner to give myself a nice entry on apex, and you can see Will there struggling with grip with them dirty tyres. Fire takes advantage of that. I'm up to P3, Fire takes P4, and SDL, the SDL driver there, SDL Academy, gets himself up into P5, and Will from P2 to P6. Disaster for Will in this race, but a great drive nonetheless from Will, putting himself in an opportunity to win the race. Just one little mistake has cost him the chance to fight for the win in this race, as we're going to have to go a little bit defensive into this final corner as Fire goes for that move around the left hand side. I hold the tight line. We've got the Alpha behind us there. We're just going to have to follow the slipstream of the cars in front to make sure that that Jag can't get back past me, as we now drag race down to the finishing line and come over the line in an amazing P3 position. I was 100% happy with P3 in this race. Fully happy with that after the practice races we had, and we're going to pick up some very strong points, and also an amazing result for Fire and SDL Academy. Fire was down to P15 at the start of the race. SDL Academy was also obviously starting at the back of the grid, so some great driving to get themselves up into the top 5 positions in this race, and we're going to come away with over 380 points. That's quite a big point. So 381 points now with the new point system is probably the equivalent to 3.2, about 3.2, something like that on the old system. So 100% happy with that. We come away with some solid points, and that will keep myself P1 in McLaren for the championship in this exhibition season. I hope you enjoyed that video. I thoroughly enjoyed that race. Some great racing, close, clean, and really enjoyable to watch. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of that race. Hit that subscription button on screen at the moment, and also the other links for more videos. Thanks again for watching, everyone.